vision of Tampa before Urban Charrette and before ESTAT was really just haphazard. It was a lot of building happening, but not with any cohesion. We really lacked, and still do, in a lot of ways, a civic infrastructure, and this has been a big problem for Tampa. And so why isn't the community voice out there? Well, part of it is because there's not a civic infrastructure for it to take place. And we really do think that this physical divide, this physical disconnect is what is also creating this lack of civic infrastructure, and that if we were better connected physically through our built environment, that this would have an immediate impact on, that sense of civic place.
The Urban Charrette was formed because there really was a need in this community to bring different professions that deal with the built environment together, and really felt like at that time that there was a need to have folks coming together and collaborating. One way to deal with that and to help with that is through neighborhood planning or some other facilitator process, and finding a place to do that. And the Urban Charrette really started that right here in this building with morning coffees and kind of educational discussions.
We invited local developers. We invited members from the university, so faculty, other students who were still in school, AIA members, other community leadership from neighborhood organizations. So we had a pretty wide representation, and we felt like we needed it to be wide in order to really get the conversation going.
We weren't just asking the city to do a bunch of stuff, but it was much more like, hey, city, you're doing some great things, and you need to continue to do those, and you need to do your best to maybe grow and focus on some new initiatives. But also, there's other organizations in the community. You all have to step up to the plate too.
Whenever it came to wanting to bring something to light to the community, we tried to do it through a project. And that project was designed to always be a demonstration and to really engage the community in some type of educational manner about what we were talking about. When I saw that the AIA had put out in the newsletter looking, to have proposals for an ESTAT, I thought that that would be a great opportunity for our organization of all volunteer young professionals to be able to kind of jump in and do something meaningful. I had talked with AIA Communities by Design. They had said and told us that, it is typically municipalities that apply. It's rare that it's a nonprofit organization. And so we knew we needed the support of the city and our planning commission in order to actually make some of these things happen.
The city's always been faced with limited resources, and so the city is always worried that they're going to be given these long lists of ideas from neighborhoods and projects and everything else and never be able to pay for them. And then everybody's going to lose trust in each other, and we're all going to be upset.
The city was probably the most resistant. They were unsure. The idea of sustainability sounds good, and the thought is, how do you say, no, we don't want to do something for sustainability, which is, I think, how we duped them. But the mayor wrote a letter of support for us. I'm not sure they read the full application or really knew kind of the smarts behind the young professionals that had put it together. It's around the kitchen table making that happen. We felt we needed to really prove our idea behind wanting to apply for this.
Urban Charrette asked us to come down very early in the genesis. They'd done individual projects, and I think they, like AIA, saw the ESTAT as being almost a strategic plan for where they went. So usually we're making recommendations that are very concrete. An ESTAT might talk about bricks and mortar work, it might talk about systems and enterprise and development. And this really was mostly about helping this fledgling organization get going.
The first tour that we took Wayne on was actually a kayak tour down the river because, one, we're very proud of the river. Two, the river really has the ability to be that connective tissue, that piece that draws so much of our neighborhoods and our downtown together. And if you ask most people what the spine of Tampa is, they'll tell you I-275, which is just terrible and heartbreaking, and it really needs to be the Hillsborough River. So, we wanted Wayne to experience the river, so that was one of the things that we did. But to be able to really show them the pieces of the city that we wanted to start reconnecting, and to show them, the areas and the neighborhoods that really needed some attention and that reconnect.
Seeing Tampa through their eyes was really interesting because it's even 5 years ago, very vibrant city, a lot of things going on, but a lot of things were really disjointed. So there were individual building projects that were great, that any city would be really jealous about getting, but they didn't really add up to a complete story. The Riverwalk was early in its stages, and that was maybe the most unifying theme, but there were lots of gaps there. And so we thought about how can we take advantage of the best things that Tampa was already doing, both as a city and that Urban Charrette was already doing, and how can we get team members to reinforce that and connect them all together. In this case, because the Urban Charrette was the client, as it were, I think AIA and certainly the team saw them as a real player to help the community moving forward. And so strengthening them would not only make Tampa a stronger place, but would also take advantage of all this energy level that was out there with these young design professionals.
The whole idea behind what we were proposing in the SDAT and what we were talking about in the conversations we were having was about how do we get neighborhoods to be able to take a little bit more control of their own destiny, and how do we get them more engaged in the planning process and the design process. And so you have to have them involved, you have to have them interested, and I think through the SDAT process we presented an opportunity for them to really have conversations that they just weren't having with the city.
As you are starting to invite some of the obvious usual suspects to the table, the planners, the engineers, the politicians, the businessmen and stuff like that, you ask them, who else should, what other voices need to be heard? Each one of them, and if you're listening, each one of them will tell you, you also need to talk to this group, or you need to talk to that group, or we have a great cultural diversity. Make sure that when you're looking at that you are representing that cultural diversity, and I think SDAT did do that.
One of the things that the SDAT process helped us to realize, and that was, say, you're going to have to look at your dark side. You can't just look at the positive things and really get to where you want to go. And I think that while it was a little difficult for some folks, I think others were really ready to do that. I think it depended upon who you were and maybe what stage you were at.
Getting different community groups to work together is something that maybe 5 years ago I would have said no to. And I think today, having these different community groups work together is easier than we saw 5 years ago, 10 years ago. People are starting to see these common goals, these commonalities within different groups, and it does make it easier for us to understand what our mission is and how we can collectively work together.
That's how things move forward. You have to be willing to accept all views, because if you become too staid and static, then you're not going to grow. And if you're not growing, you're dying. And I think that's what's important about the SDAT. They brought that in to kind of get that third opinion, that independent view of what's happening. The SDAT really kind of supported kind of what we knew, but maybe didn't verbalize it as well as we could have. And 5 years later, in virtually every area that the SDAT talked about, we've made significant progress.
This is Waterworks Park, northern end of downtown, northern end of the Riverwalk. One of the newest parks, one of 7 parks along the waterfront. The river really is the center of the city, and this has been a big focus on many levels, to not look at the river as the edge of downtown, but the center of the city.
Waterworks Park definitely embodies the spirit of our SDAT because it incorporates a lot of the elements that came out of it. So it's about getting, that green space back. This park, for example, was dead space. It was not accessible, couldn't be used. The Waterworks building behind us, which is now Ulele, the beautiful restaurant, was dilapidated and empty. You know, in terms of sustainability, this one really begins to address on multiple levels. So environmental sustainability, economic sustainability for what it is doing for this particular neighborhood, and then the social sustainability, because now it gives everyone, you know, in this neighborhood and from surrounding areas a place to come, to gather, to be, and to have that connectivity that we were typically lacking.
Personally, I feel that the SDAT played a role in shaping the perspective and the narrative of the community and of planning, and what planning and urban design needed to be. It brought together planning and architecture and urban design and community groups in a conversation. And I cannot emphasize how important that is in this community, in any community.
Tampa for me is vibrant, and it's a place that is starting to realize its full potential.
Downtown has an energy, and our city has pride and realization that we are a new and a wonderful place.
I've worked with AIA on, I think, 23 RUDATs and SDATs, and they all have their own unique things, and they all have a lot of energy. But I think in coming to Tampa, the youthful exuberance of the Urban Charrette and the effectiveness of the Urban Charrette really made them stand out. They're just a different kind of organization. On the one hand, I think it's probably frustrating for them because they're not making the decisions. They're a step removed from power, as it were. On the other hand, they're going to leave a mark. I mean, you know, mostly they're young. They're going to be around for the next 40 years, and they're clearly leaving a mark in the city and will continue to. And that was personally really rewarding, and I think makes the process all worthwhile.